Вы смотрите проект «Реальные люди». Сегодня, с вашего позволения, мы решили изменить формат. Представляем вам нашего гостя Лэйн Дэвис, американский актер театра и кино, Мейсон из Санта-Барбары, Дон Кихот из знаменитого спектакля «Человек из Ла-Манчи». Искренне вас благодарю за то, что вы приняли наше приглашение. Спасибо большое, что вы пришли к нам в студию. Сегодня мы поменяли формат. Обычно мы традиционно говорим о новостях, которые интересуют нашего гостя, а сегодня вопросы будем задавать мы и тысячи наших зрителей. I welcome you, Mr. Lэйн Дэвис, in our studio at RFE. So happy to see you. And I'm sure many of our viewers right now are happy to see you because they sent their questions and their admiration to you. Thank you very much for joining us and accepting our invitation to come.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here.
I was at your opening night of Man of La Mancha in Prague. I loved it, and it's a very rare thing that a Prague audience applauds so much. How do you find Prague audience so far?
They've been extremely enthusiastic, extremely smart in terms of understanding the play, and extremely receptive to the message of the play.
How many shows do you have in Prague?
10 this run. We do 5 in May, 5 in June. We will probably be back in October for another 5 shows.
We live in a social media life right now. All of us are trying to get as many likes on social networks as possible. And how difficult is it to stay with your core values on the stage?
I don't find it difficult at all. I find it easier on stage than in film and television, actually. I'm sort of challenged when it comes to social media, so that's never in the forefront of my mind. My son, who is also in the play, is much more adept and much more in tune with social media than I am, but it doesn't influence my life very much.
In one of your recent interviews, you said that commercial work, commercial TV helped you to earn money, to give people and your audience core values. Does it mean you like it more on the stage than on the camera?
You know, it's difficult to say. I think I like the nature of stage work better, even though you're working without a net, as they say. I like the immediate feedback from an audience. But in the United States, especially in the United States, you can't really provide for your future with only stage work. You need to supplement your income with film and television work. So I've always tried to maintain a balance. You know, I would do 9 months of Santa Barbara and then take 2 months off to do theater in Georgia, you know, Shakespeare somewhere or other. So I always tried to maintain a balance between commercial work and theater work.
I was trying to keep this conversation as far as possible from Santa Barbara, but I think we've got already there. And of course, I cannot be original. I know you've visited many of the countries where this show was on, and the show was on in 52 countries?
50 something. I think it was 52 at last count.
How many of those countries have you visited?
You know, I've been to about 34 countries, but I'm not sure how many of those the show was actually airing in. I know I've been to 8 former Soviet republics where the show was extremely popular, you know, but I've also been over most of Europe where the show was also shown.
Any bright memories from those visits?
Too many to go into in a short interview, probably.
You know, there is a whole generation of women, I would say girls, who grew up on Santa Barbara. This is the generation of 90s. And the whole families watched it. And
right.
I remember in my country, 1 hour episode was divided to 3 cuts, and there were 20-minute commercials between them. And actually, people managed to do their housework or something between these episodes, and it was really funny. And there are still people who watch it or watch the episodes on YouTube, and you are still popular. And we announced your visit on social networks in our account Facebook that you are coming, and we got lots of comments and words of admiration. If you don't mind, I just read some of them. You know, Inga Shevchuk from Tatarstan wrote that you are very stylish. Yelena Albakov from Kazakhstan wrote that you are a fabulous man. Ibrahim Tabolov from North Caucasus wrote, you are a wonderful actor and a wonderful man. Laysan Mingalieva from Tatarstan asked, how is life, Mason? Rina Hussein from Azerbaijan wrote, you are something to look up to. Evgenia Chesnakova from Tatarstan asked, would you join Santa Barbara again if it were put back on air? So what do you think?
You know, and there actually has been talk about that. But yeah, I would go back if for no other reason than to be back with, you know, the Santa Barbara family. Some of my best friends were actors on that show.
Are you still in touch with them?
With some of them, yeah. A. Martinez and I are still, who played Cruz, is still in contact, and Louise Sorel, who played Augusta, Nicholas Coster, who played Lionel Lockridge, and several others I maintain contact with, thanks to email and Facebook.
If you recall any of the storylines, was there any of your favorite or the most bizarre one?
There were so many, some of which I'd rather forget, some of which, you know, still stick with me. I loved working with Harley Kozak, who played Mary on the show. That was a nice storyline that I think ended too soon. I had a good time most of the time with Nancy Gran, who played Julia on the show, and I'm still in contact with both of those ladies. I enjoyed the Sonny Sprocket storyline. It gave me kind of a break from Mason for a while. I got to play somebody else, you know, 24 hours a day it felt like in those days.
What about split personality storyline?
That was the one I was talking about. Sonny Sprocket was my alter ego, so that gave me a break from just playing Mason 5 or 6 days a week. You know, it was nice to be able to use my southern accent and fool around with guitar and music and that sort of thing. It was a nice break from the routine of doing Mason every day.
What was the routine? What was the reason you left the show?
I'd been doing the show for 5 years, and you know, it was a relentless schedule, 5 or 6 days a week with 20 or 30 pages a day, and I had a theater company and I was doing some recording, and I was just exhausted and felt like I needed a break. So I quit the show and just traveled for 6 months, studied French for a month, and then sort of took off on a trip around the world. With Todd McKee, who played Ted on the show. Or just around the coffee machine one morning, he said, what are you going to do when you leave? And I said, I'm going to study French for a month and then go around the world. Do you want to go? And he said, yeah. And by the end of the day, we had our tickets. We had plane tickets.
Did they call you back to return?
Yes, but I never went back. They tried to bring me back on a couple of occasions, but I never went back.
If the producers decide to revive the show, to make it longer, would you go? Would you join?
Probably so, yeah. I would be, the only hesitation I would have is that I don't know if I could live in the Los Angeles area again. Having spent so much time in the country now and spent so much time in Prague, Los Angeles has a lot to recommend it, but it's not my favorite place on the planet to live. So it would need to be something where we would go in and film for a certain amount of time, and then I could leave the city, I think.
You turn 67 this year.
Yes.
What is aging for you?
You know, Because of the way I feel most of the time, it seems to be mostly about the numbers. You know, I am fortunately in very good health for my age. You know, I got a very good hair gene from my father's side of the family, so my hair's not going gray. And I mean, certain things are slowing me down a bit, but aging for me is just really about taking advantage of the good things about being older, what limited wisdom I've gained, and realizing that I don't intend to leave the planet anytime soon, but at the same time I realize I want to maximize the time I've got left.
You've died on the stage so many times, your characters.
Yes, literally and figuratively. Yeah.
What do you think about death? Are you afraid of death?
No, no. I don't want it to be slow and painful, you know, but at the same time, my concept of, you know, the undiscovered country, as Shakespeare said, is such that I'm not afraid of it.
Was the world a better place long time ago, or is it better now? And where are we going right now?
I think I'm an optimist. I think it's better now. And in spite of the troubles, you know, I think the human race is advancing. I think we're less brutal, less violent, less territorial and predatory than we have been in the past, less afraid than we have been in the past. The gains, you know, just in terms of the quality of life for the average human being is far above what it was even 100 years ago. You know, millionaires 100 years ago didn't live as well as we live now in terms of convenience and technology and ease of life. So I think we're evolving. I think the human race is actually improving. Doesn't seem that way because we're assaulted with 24/7 news, you know, about the bad things that happen. You know, as you know, if it bleeds, it leads is the mantra in news, and so we hear so much bad things. It doesn't seem that way, but I think overall the planet is a better place for human beings than it was. You know.
What is the biggest concern of today for humanity? What is the biggest problem?
You know, that's one of those hard questions. Ignorance, I would say. You know, to be a little bit too general and not be political or environmental, I would say ignorance is the biggest threat to humanity today.
Thank you very much
for
this interview. Лэйн Дэвис, American actor. Thank you. В нашем проекте «Реальные люди» сегодня был американский актер театра и кино Лэйн Дэвис. Смотрите нас на нашем сайте Idel.Реалии.org, а также в соцсетях и на канале YouTube. До свидания.